Hello, welcome to this lecture on biomathematics. Today, in this lecture, we will discuss some of the ideas that we learned in the previous lectures to understand some very simple models on evolution. So, whenever we think about evolution, as you all know, is a very important idea in biology, and people have tried to model make simple mathematical models to explain various evolutionary processes. So, today we will discuss one of the very simple models. So, the title of today's lecture is Simple Mathematical Models to Understand Evolution. So, when we say about evolution, the first thing comes to our mind is basically things that change from one generation to other generation. So, think as the generations pass by, something is changing. So, that is evolution. So, now we will think of in that context, what is the simplest thing that can change when as the generation goes, and how do we think of it mathematically. And one of the simplest model for this kind of thought is something called Wright-Fisher model. So, today we will be discussing the Wright-Fisher model. So, this Wright-Fisher model is named after two individuals, Sewall Wright and Ronald Fisher. That's Wright from Sewall Wright. It's two people like Sewall Wright and Ronald Fisher, and this is the simplest population genetic model. So, whenever we think of models, whatever mathematics we learned and we want to apply it to various situations, as we also said before, what we should think is that what is the simplest of all things that I can think of, and can I write it in a mathematical form? And if we can write the simplest of all things, then we can add a bit of complexity and then write a mathematical equation for little more complex thing, or explain it and I do mathematical analysis of a thing which is a little more complex. So, always, even it is a bit ideal, even if it is far from reality, in modeling typically always we will start with the simplest of all models. Simplest of all, we will make the simplest assumptions, make the system very simple, and we will start. So, today also we will do that. So, given that things happening after generation, what can we think of the simplest thing? So, let us imagine. So, what we are going to discuss is Wright-Fisher model. Wright-Fisher model. So, what is the simplest thing you can think of? Think of there are n individuals. So, in our case, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let us say there are 6 individuals, and let us assume that each of them have just one chromosome for simplicity. So, such things are called haploid individuals. So, this is for simplicity, let us assume n individuals. So, there are 6 individuals, each of them have single chromosomes. So, this is the first generation. In the next generation, again let us assume that there are again 6 individuals. This is the offspring. So, this is generation 1 and this is generation 2. Then, so this is the first thing that we consider, that there are n haploid individuals. In our case, is 6, and assume that in the next generation we have again n equal number of population, n individuals again. Now, this is basically offspring of this generation. So, who is the parent from here? So, you randomly choose a parent. So, each child will have a random parent. So, this offspring individual will have a parent which is randomly chosen. So, this is the random, you choose randomly. So, this is the model, you choose randomly. So, this is the randomly choose this, and this will have, this is the parent of this particular offspring. Now this offspring, you have various options, again randomly choose somewhere. So this is the parent of this particular offspring individual. So this is the next offspring individual. Again, among this 6 of them you choose randomly. So if you choose randomly, sometime it can happen that you will end up with this particular parent twice. That can happen because you are choosing randomly. Randomly, for you have to do this. So basically, you close your eyes, blindly put your finger on some of this, one of this. Let's say you get this, then this is your next individual, next parent for this particular offspring individual. Now, what is the parent of this? So you again randomly choose. It could be this. So you randomly chose this, and you got this as the individual. Now for this, you randomly choose, and let's say you got this. So each of this individual in the next generation has a parent, and the parent is chosen randomly. So this idea is called the Wright-Fisher model. So whatever we describe now graphically is the essence of Wright-Fisher, the simplest of Wright-Fisher model. So let us see what all we did randomly. So let us look here. What did we did? We imagine that there is a haploid population of n individuals. Haploid means single DNA. Sorry, there is only one chromosome, one set, and then assume that there is a constant population. That is, there are n offspring individuals also. So we consider here, in our case, if you look at the paper here, if you look at here, there are 6 individuals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 offsprings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here n is equal to 6. So this is the in both generations there are equal number of individuals. The population is a constant. It's not dying, or there is no dying here. So this is basically, that is the second point here. Assume that constant population, that is n offspring individuals, and assume that each offspring individual picks up parent randomly from the previous generation. And that's what we again did here in this paper, that we said parent of this offspring is randomly chosen, again of this is randomly chosen. It could be any of this. You could draw another set of the same thing. So you randomly choose this, and the last assumption is that each offspring inherits chromosomes of the parent without any mutation, without any change. So there is no change. That is in reality, of course, there will be mutations and all that, but for simplicity, to have a simplest of all models, we assume that there is no change. So with these assumptions, can we learn something? Can we write down some mathematical formula for using mathematics? Can we predict something? Can we learn something? That is why we are choosing this very simple model, because even for this simple model, can we make some predictions using the mathematical ideas that we learned? If we can, it's useful, and if we cannot, then there is no hope for a complex thing. I mean, if we cannot even make a prediction for a simple model like this, we have no hope of predicting the real complex models. So it turns out that we can do pretty good prediction, very various interesting things for this particular model, and this model is very useful. So let us look at this assumptions that we made for this model once more. So first, we imagined that there is a haploid population of n individuals, and we assume that is a constant population, that is, there are n offspring individuals also. So there is n parent and n offspring, n parent individuals, n offspring individuals, and each offspring individual picks up parent randomly from the previous generation, and each offspring inherits no chromosome of the parent without any change. There is no mutation, no change at all. So whatever be the DNA here, whatever be the chromosome of this particular parent, it will be exactly transferred to this offspring. whatever chromosome of this parent, it will be exactly transferred. But look at here, this particular parent has no child. This parent has 2 children or 2 offspring individuals. So, the chromosome of this increased in this generation, this twice. So, whatever genes on this became twice here, but whatever genes on this is not here at all. So, some genes are being increased, some genes are being lost. So, this is indeed mimicking some of the phenomenon that is happening in evolution as the population change. So, now this is what is drawn here, what we do, the first generation and the second generation. So, you can see here, for example, this particular individual has no offspring at all. So, whatever genes, whatever chromosome, whatever genes was there in this particular individual would have lost. On the other hand, this particular individual has 2 offspring individuals. In the next generation, there are 2 offsprings, one this and one this. So, the genetic material of this is doubled in this next generation. So, such things are happening. So, now let us go to the, so if you can continue this and you can go for the next generation. So, you can have, this is the 1, 2, 3 generations. Again, you choose one individual, randomly draw an arrow from choose the parent randomly, this choose the parent randomly, this individual chose the parent randomly, this individual has this parent, again random, this individual has this parent, random, this individual has this particular parent, again randomly chosen, this individual chooses parent randomly, this chooses randomly. So, in this particular exactly the way we came from 1 to 2, we can go from 2 to 3 and so on and so forth. Now, this is the Wright-Fisher model, the simplest of Wright-Fisher model, and we will see now what can we learn from this. And once we understand a few things from this, we can add complexity. We can say, okay, we did haploid, now what will happen for diploid, what will happen if there is mutation, what will happen, what all things we can say and what all things we can learn from this. That is what we want to see now, and then we add complexity. Okay. Now, given these rules, now let us think a bit about genes in this particular model. So, look at here. So, imagine that in this particular generation, the first generation has 2 alleles, A and B. So, allele A and allele B, and P is the probability that of finding allele A in this generation. So, in this parent generation, how many of these alleles A will be there and how many of allele B will be there, and let P be the probability of finding allele A in this generation. Then the question is that what is then if you know this much. So, there are 2 alleles. So, again in reality there will be many alleles, but for simplicity let us again think of only 2 alleles A and B. So, there is some fraction, let us say there are 10 individuals and let us say 6 of these individuals has allele A and 4 of these individuals have allele B or gene B. You can think of that way, or 3 of them have gene A, allele A, and 3 of them have 7 of them has gene B. So, in this particular way, if you think of it, you can ask the following question: if P is the probability of finding an allele A in the current generation, what is the probability of finding the same allele in the next generation? So, we have allele A and allele B, and then you can ask the question, how likely that you will find an allele, the same allele A in the next generation? And the answer is something very simple idea that we learned already. So, we will discuss that allele, but let us understand all this, what is this probability and all that a little more carefully. So, let us look at here. So, let us draw this little more interestingly. So, let us color this. So, let us color this genetic material green. So, this is green. So, 3 of them out of this 6, 4 of them I colored green and 2 of them I am coloring red. So, the green, so let us redraw this a little more carefully. So, let us have again, let us say 10 individuals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 individuals and 10 offspring individuals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let us say 3 individuals randomly I am coloring red and other 7 will have green chromosomes. Then you again randomly choose a parent for this individual. So, let us say you choose parent for this particular way, sorry, for this way, for this way, for this particular I choose this randomly, for this particular I choose this randomly, for this I choose this way, for this I choose this, for this individual I choose randomly this one, for this individual I choose randomly this one, so and for this individual I choose randomly this one. So, now let us look at this one is inheriting a green one. So, let me draw a green here. So, this is inheriting from a green one. So, green, this is inheriting from a red one. So, this is basically a red, sorry, it is a red. So, it is a red one and this is inheriting from a green one. So, I draw a green. This is inheriting from a green. So, I draw a green. This is inheriting from a red. So, I draw a red here. This is inheriting from a green. This is inheriting from green. This is inheriting from a red. So, I draw a red here. This is inheriting from this was inheriting from a green actually. So, I draw green here, this is from red and this is from green. So, again we have 3 reds here. So, you can ask the question, if there are 3 reds in this, now you did one in one particular population, you can do many such experiments. If you were to draw the same thing, you will draw in a different manner the arrows randomly. Then you can ask on an average, or what is the likelihood of finding, what is the probability, if you do this many times, what is the probability of finding, let us say 3 red in the next generation, probability of finding 3 red in the next generation. You can ask this question and the answer is basically a statistical distribution that we learned, and this can be understood very easily. So, let us think of this. So, this is what we said, there are 10 individuals and there is 3 allele A, for example red. So, the probability in the parent generation is 0.3, there are 3 out of 10. So, in our case the probability is 3 out of 10, 0.3. Now, we ask the question, in the next generation what is the probability that the 7 of them have allele A? So, in our example you can ask the question, what is the probability there are 7 reds in the next generation? To have 7 red, this have to have at least, let us say this red had 2 offsprings, this had 2 offspring, this has, so 2 and 2 4 and this had 3, then there will be 7. So, to have 7 reds in the next generation, each of this will have to have multiple offsprings, then only there will be 7. So, you can ask the question, what is the probability that in the next generation, if there are only 3 out of 10 red alleles, what is the probability that there will be 7 alleles, red alleles in the next generation? So, this is the question. If there is allele A with probability 0.3, what is the probability that there will be 7 of them will be allele A. So, there are 10 individuals, out of 3 are allele A, that is P is point, probability is 3 out of 10, that is 3 by 10, which is 0.3. In the next generation, what is the probability that 7 of them have allele A? And the answer is something that we learned called binomial distribution. So, the probability G is basically 10 C7, this is combination, the way it is written 10 C7, 0.3, which is the probability, power 7 into 1 minus 0.3, this is probability of not having that allele, or the probability of having the green allele, that is 1 minus 0.3 in 10 power 10 minus 7. So, this kind of distribution is called binomial distribution. So, the answer is given by this. So, we know what this means. So, let us explain this. So, the answer we said, so what are we asking? Probability of having 7 red or 7 particular color in the next generation given that 3 out of 10 is red in the current generation. And the answer to that is something that we learned is called the binomial, it's coming from the binomial distribution. So, this will have a binomial distribution that we learned. So, and the distribution is basically 10 C7, 3 by 10, that is the probability in the power 7, 1 minus 3 by 10 whole power 10 minus 7, which is 3. So, this is the answer. This is the probability. So, let me call this G. So, this is the probability of having 7 red in the next generation, given that 3 out of 10 is red in the current generation, and the 7 out of red in the current generation is green. So, now what is 10 C7? Basically, it turns out that the 10 C7 is basically 10 factorial divided by 7 factorial into 10 minus 7 factorial. So, in general, this is n c, k is a combination, combinatorics. So, it is combination, or also called n choose k sometime. So, it is basically n factorial divided by k factorial into n minus k factorial. So, this is the basic thing. Now, this is the formula. So, we can, based on this formula, we can calculate this n c k. So, for example, this we can calculate. So, 10 factorial is basically 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into up to 10 divided by 7 factorial is 1 into 2 into 3 into 4 into up to 7, and 10 minus 7 factorial is 3 factorial. So, this is 1 into 2 into 3. So, with this is a number, you will get a number, we can calculate a number from this. So, this is basically that number times 0.3 power 7 1 minus 3. So, this is the probability will be some number which is between 0 and 1. Now, when we say binomial distribution, it has some particular properties. So, this is the in general binomial distribution is this n c k p power k 1 minus p power n minus k. So, this is the general nature of binomial distribution. Just like we learnt various distributions, if you have this binomial distribution, as we said, g of n comma k comma p, where if there are n, what is the probability that k of them will have this, will be this particular allele is the question, and then we can calculate the k average, just like we have been doing. This is sum over k k g of n k p. This will be the answer. So, this will be some function of n and p, and you can also calculate k square average. Basically, this will be sum over k square g of n comma k comma p. So, this case, this runs from 0 to in principle infinity if you want, or whatever there are n. In this case, this runs to n. So, this is the similarly here k is 0 to n, right. So, this is we can calculate, if you have this, we can calculate k average and k square average and then variance and all that. So, let us look how we calculate. So, we can calculate k square average minus k average square. This is the variance. So, we can calculate variance, then we can calculate standard deviation, which is basically k square average minus k average square. Okay, so let us look at in this example. So, the k average, so this is g n k, and k average is k multiplied this and sum over k, and it turns out that the answer is n p. So, this answer of this particular, this if you do, the answer is n p. Similarly, for the variance, so then we can calculate variance, and the answer turns out to be, for variance is n p into 1 minus p. If you call 1 minus p as q, this is n p q. So, this is the variance, and square root of this will be standard deviation. So, we know that on an average there will be n times p into alleles on an average, and this is the standard deviation, which is n p into 1 minus p. This is the variance, n p into 1 minus p. Okay. So, we learned some statistical properties of this distribution, and we have now some idea that if you have such a rule, we can basically predict if there is a particular allele in this generation, density of this alleles, how many of the frequency of this alleles, what is the probability that the allele frequency will be a given number in the next generation, can be easily calculated. Okay. Now, this can be immediately put to use. So, now first of all we can plot this, we can, for example, we can plot g of n comma k comma p as a function of k, and it will look like some curve. We don't know, we have to, it will have some particular shape. So, whatever I just draw a random curve here, but let us look at some exact curve. So, here is a curve which is basically for p is equal to 0.4. This is the plot, the red line here, for various k is for, this is for 10 individuals. So, this is various k values, and what do we see here? The probability of having, so the first p was 0.4. What does it mean? Out of 10, 4 of them are allele red. Out of 10, 4 of them have allele red, and in the next generation, again 4 of them, the probability of having allele red, 4 having allele red is very high. Probability of having everybody, all the 10 allele red is 0, is very small, near 0. Probability of having completely, what does this mean? Probability of losing the allele, there are 0 individuals having this particular allele. Completely losing the allele, that is probability is also very small. So, then we can ask the question that, so now we can vary the value of, p. For example, we can get the value of p as 0.2 and then plot this g of n k p as a function of k, and you see interestingly this has increased and this has, here it has increased and here it has decreased. So, let us compare these two. If we compare these two, look at here, the probability of having 0 allele in the next generation. The probability of having 0 allele is this particular point, and this is much for point 2. Then when p is 0.4, the initial frequency is less. If the initial frequency is small, the probability of losing that allele is very large. So here is this is one prediction we can make. So essentially what we are predicting, given this information, what is the probability that in the next generation the allele will be lost, one particular gene will be lost. So that can be predicted using this. You can also predict what is the probability that a given allele will be lost after t generation. So there is something called mean first passage time in statistical physics and in statistics in general. So mean first passage time. So what is the probability that for the first time an allele will be, a gene will be completely lost? The mean time, this can be calculated. So this is another quantity that we can compute from this model. So far we took a very simple model, and this model could predict what is the probability of losing an allele, what is the probability of this allele being a particular number, what is the probability of losing this allele after a few generations. Such questions we can ask. So, and we can answer various interesting things. But then the question is, what we did is basically for a haploid individual. What is it for a diploid individual? If there are 2 genes, 2 chromosomes in one individual, how does this work? Can you have this rule? So let's think of this. So let's first draw similar thing that we had. So let's draw 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are chromosomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 chromosomes, and if you are imagining a diploid, 2 chromosomes will come from one parent. One individual will have 2 chromosomes. So there are 4 individuals here, and each individual has 2 chromosomes. So this is the diploid example. Now we have offsprings, and again let us draw offsprings. So this is an offspring individual, and this is an offspring individual, this is an offspring individual, offspring individual. This offspring individual will have again 2 chromosomes. Now let us try to draw the arrow that we learned the same way. So let us forget for a moment this circles and choose this and randomly draw arrow from one of the above ones. So let's do this. Let's randomly draw arrow. I choose this, I 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 randomly draw arrow. Now what did we get? We didn't do anything except we drew a circle, but otherwise everything looks the same as the Wright-Fisher model that we discussed for haploids. The only thing changed is that, so let's think of individuals. This 2 chromosome came from one from this and one from this. So these 2 gave birth to this. This came from this and this. This came from this and this. This came from this and this. So if you assume, if you allow random mating or random mixing, we can say that this is essentially the same as the Wright Fisher model. So, if what we did, if we can allow randomly mate or randomly mix, then this whatever we did is exactly the same as the Wright Fisher model. We just chose one chromosome, randomly decided the parent chromosome, chose chromosome, randomly decided the parent chromosome. This and this mixed, and this mixing can be random. So, the only thing, so the question we had is, how do we extend this idea to a diploid individual, to diploid individuals? And the answer is assume random mating. If you assume random mating, or there is a technically this is called panmixia. If you assume random mating, this will turn out that it is exactly the same as the Wright Fisher model. So, we can extend this idea to random diploids also. Now, what else can we learn? So, exactly all this whatever statistics we applied, all the binomial distribution applies to diploids. You can ask the question, what is the probability that a particular chromosome, a particular gene will be lost? Again, you can color, we can draw various colors. There can be green, red, green. So, out of this 8, 3 of them will be green color, 4 of them, 5 of them will be red color, and so on and so forth. Then whatever we did so far, we can just repeat and then redo this again. And you will ask the same thing will happen. So, for example, let us quickly do this. So, we can draw each individual with a red or a green color, each chromosome. So, let us say the first individual both is red, and the second individual is one red and one green, sorry, one green and one red, and the next individual will have both green, second individual will have again one red and one green, let us say. Now, so these are the individuals. So, there are 4 diploid individuals with. So, so we had, let us just have again 10. So, let us have it 8 only. So, there are out of 8, there are 4 of them are red and 4 of them are green. Now, we can ask the question, in the next generation, again there are 4 individuals. Now, these 4 individuals in the offspring generation, we have to choose the parent chromosomes. So, imagine that they randomly mate, that is what our assumption is. So, let us say imagine random mating. So, imagine that this and this mate, and this gives this red and this gives the green. So, the green comes here. So, this individual will have a red chromosome and a green chromosome. Let us say this is a production of random mating of this and this. So, this and this randomly mate, and then this they randomly choose 2 mating partners, and then you get this particular individual. So, let us assume that this gives its green chromosome. So, let us give this to green. This also has green. So, this also gives its green. So, you have this. So, now let us imagine that this and this have a mating, and then you get this. So, this gives again one of this green, and this gives also its green. So, again you have 2 greens. Now, here let us imagine that this and this randomly mate. So, it has to have one red, and let us say one green from this. So, one green. So, here we had 4 red and 4 green, and here we have only 2 red and 6 green. So, similar things could happen, different things, and you can ask the same question: what is the probability of having, if there are 4 green in the parent generation, out of, if there are 4 out of 8 greens in the parent generation, what is the probability that 6 out of 8 is green in the next generation? And the answer is again a binomial distribution. So, the answer we said is basically again 8 C 6, 4 out of 8 is half power 6 into half power 2. So, this is the answer, same thing as binomial distribution we said, and we can calculate these questions. Now, we can ask the question. So, these things we learned, this is more scope. You can ask the question, what is the probability that 2 individuals have the same parent in few generations ago? So, this is the question we are asking. What is the probability that 2 individuals had a common parent t generations ago? So, if you draw many arrows like this, many generations, few generations ago, 2 individuals might have had a common ancestor. So, what is the probability that t generations ago 2 individuals had common ancestor? And the answer can be calculated from this model. So, let us imagine again a simple case. So, let us imagine that, so let us say, let S be the, S is equal to S be the probability of having common parent in the previous generation. Probability of having common parent in the previous generation. Then 1 minus S is basically the probability of not having a common parent in the previous generation. So, S is the probability of having a common parent in the just previous generation, and 1 minus S is the probability of not having a common parent in the previous generation. And then we ask the question, what is the probability that t generations ago? So, let us draw many generations. So, this is generation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, many generations. So, t generations ago. So, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, similarly t minus 1 and then this t. So, up to t generations, 2 individuals should not have any common parent, but in the tth generation this gave birth to some this, and then they all gave birth to various offsprings individuals, and then you ended up here. You ask the question, so up to t minus 1 generations you do not want to have a common individuals. So, if 1 minus S is the probability of not having a common parent in the next generation, 1 minus S square, that is 2 times 1 minus will be that of not having in the 2 successive generations, and there are t minus 1 successive generations. So, up to 1 minus S t minus 1 times. You multiply this. So, this is the probability of not having a common parent in the t minus 1 generation, and then S is the probability of having a parent in the previous generation. So, the t minus generation you should not have a common parent, and in the next tth generation you have to have a common parent. So, then this product essentially will give you the probability of having, so the what we discussed here, probability of having, probability that 2 individuals had a common parent in t generations ago. So, that is the answer. This will give you the answer that two individuals had a common parent t generation ago. So, such things we can calculate. It is a very simple calculation. So, basically we can calculate what is the probability that two individuals had a common parent t generations ago. Okay, so we learned this. So again, this is again. So what? Where is the another? When we say about binomial distribution, you should also remember that this is very analogous to tossing a biased coin. Like if you had a biased coin, if it is not, it's unbiased coin, the probability will be half half. If it is a biased coin, the probability could be p and 1 minus p. And this is very much like a tossing a biased coin, and you could think of this analogy and compare with this whatever the right Fisher model is, and then think about in that particular way. Also, when I say this, if it is not very clear to you what this product means, you could also think of this example that tossing a coin, like if you had, let's say there is an one of the let's say there is a cricket match happening, and in cricket matches it is very common. It is we all know that there is a toss to decide who to field first or who to bat first, which team will field first or bat first. So imagine that in each cricket match there will be a toss of coin, and then you can get a head or tail. So, and what is the probability that in the two successive matches, for example, a given team, let's say India will get tosses, like the toss that you had. So you want always, let's say the Indian captain calls head, and what is the probability that both the matches India will get head is half into half, which is one product of half into half. So to understand this, we can just quickly think of it. So there is two head and tail. There are two options only. So the probability of each of this is half, because there are one of two options. Now there are two matches. So it can happen that in the first match it can be, so there are two matches. So the first tossing you can get the head will fall. In the second toss again head will fall. This is one possibility. In the first toss there will be a head, and in the second toss there will be a tail. This is a possibility. In the first toss there will be a tail, second toss there will be a head. This is another possibility. In both there will be a tail. This is fourth possibility. There are four possibilities, and both of this we getting head. This is just one of these four possibilities. So this is half into half, which is 1 by 4. So this is the same way we had 1 minus s into 1 minus s up to, now we can ask the question, what is the probability that in all the 5 matches that we have in a 5 series match against a given team, that India will get tossed? This is half into half into half 5 times. Similarly, what is the probability of not having a common parent in t minus 1 generation is 1 minus s into 1 minus s into 1 minus s into up to t minus 1 times. So this is very analogous to this. So you could think about this in this particular way. Okay, so now we had diploid individuals, and we learned something about nearest common ancestor. Then we can ask the question that how do we incorporate mutations? There was no mutation so far. How do we incorporate mutations? It takes the problem a little more complex. So we can, if you look back the rules we had this particular rule that each offspring inherits the chromosome of the parent as it is, without any change, without any mutation, as it is, each offspring inherits its chromosome. We can change this rule a bit and introduce that each offspring inherits its chromosome with some probability, and the mutation happens with some other probability. So let's say with the probability m, the mutation happens. With the probability 1 minus m, the mutation does not happen. So we can just change one rule in this set of rules of Wright-Fisher model, and then you can incorporate mutation. So, when we change this model, what we end up is this. So, this is how you incorporate random mutations, that each offspring inherits chromosome of the parent with a probability 1 minus m, and with probability m it will change the genotype. So, if once you introduce this will become a little more complex, then many things you may not be able to get a lot of things analytically, maybe some of these things we can get analytically. So, I would not discuss that in this class, we will leave it at this, that you can modify these rules and think of mathematical models. So, one thing you should understand is that this simple idea of just exchanging individuals just by mutation, a simple mutation or no mutation itself can explain a lot of phenomena. And one thing we haven't incorporated or discussed at all is selection here, but you can also think of how to incorporate selection and do a mathematical model for it. It's again some things we learned, people use diffusive model, we learned about diffusion. So, people use something called diffusive model for to incorporate selection or even mutation. So, whatever the techniques that we learned so far is indeed a lot of them are being used in modeling evolution. I just gave you a flavor of what can be done for the simplest case, and with this we will stop today's class. So, to summarize, we can use different ideas we learned to make simple models of evolution. There is an error here, it is not evolution, it is evolution. So, simple models of evolution, and with this I will stop today's lecture. See you in the next class.